Up one morning and realizing you've become so powerful that nothing excites you anymore. No challenge, no danger, no opponent can make your heart race. You're the strongest being alive and yet completely bored. That's the exact life of Saitama, the bald-headed, blank-faced, supermarket-loving hero known as One Punch Man. But behind the simple gags, exploding monsters, and oversized fists, there's a world of secrets and curiosities that even the most hardcore fans might not know. So sit back and prepare to dive deep into the bizarre world of One Punch Man, starting with its unexpected origin. Before One Punch Man became an anime phenomenon, it began as a webcomic, drawn and written by a mysterious artist who goes by the name One. No last name, no face, just One. And here's the twist. The original webcomic's art was... how can we say this nicely? Let's just say it looked like it was drawn with a potato. Stick figures, crooked limbs, shaky lines, and yet it exploded in popularity. Why? Because the story was pure genius.
Saitama wasn't just a strong character. He was a commentary, a satire of the superhero genre itself. While other heroes train for years, battle to survive, and evolve through suffering, Saitama does 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and runs 10 kilometers every single day for 3 years. No fancy powers, no magic artifacts, just sheer effort. And he becomes unstoppable. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Despite the art's poor quality, the story attracted millions of readers online. It got so big that Yusuke Murata, the legendary artist behind Eyeshield 21, reached out to OWN with a dream to remake the series with professional-grade art. The collaboration between OWN's brilliant storytelling and Murata's jaw-dropping illustrations was the perfect storm, and thus One Punch Man was reborn. But what's truly shocking is how close to failure Saitama's story could have been. In fact, if Murata hadn't contacted OWN, One Punch Man might have just stayed an obscure webcomic. Think about that. One of the most iconic anime characters of the decade almost vanished into the void of the internet. Let's talk about that anime now, because when the first season dropped in 2015, animated by Madhouse, the world was blown away. The fluid motion, the dynamic fights, the comedic timing, it was unlike anything fans had seen before. Saitama punching a planet-sized meteor into dust? Pure eye candy. Genos launching flaming attacks while the camera spins like a Michael Bay movie on steroids? Legendary.
But here's the fun part. While everyone was gawking at the fights, they missed dozens of hidden details and references sprinkled throughout the show. Did you notice how Saitama always shows up late to battles, only to end them in one hit? That's not just for laughs. It's a jab at anime tropes where heroes arrive just in time. Saitama couldn't care less about timing or dramatic entrances. He's more concerned about missing grocery sales. And Genos, our fiery cyborg apprentice? He might look like the ultimate sidekick, but ONE admitted that Genos was never meant to be the viewer's perspective. Instead, he's the wrong kind of hero. Someone obsessed with strength, vengeance, and rank. A mirror to show how meaningless those things are when compared to Saitama's effortless power. Even Saitama's ranking system within the Hero Association is a brilliant irony. Despite being stronger than every S-Class hero combined, he starts as a lowly C-Class nobody, mocked by the media and shunned by civilians. Meanwhile, characters like King, who has no powers at all, are revered as legendary warriors. Why? Because people love appearances more than substance, a subtle but biting commentary on modern society. And speaking of King, did you know that his heartbeat sound, the intense doki doki noise, isn't some power-up effect? It's just his real heartbeat, thundering in fear because he's scared out of his mind every time he faces danger. He's considered the strongest man alive, but in reality, he's just really, really lucky.
But don't let the comedy fool you. Beneath the jokes and overpowered punches lies a much darker, deeper world. Monsters in One Punch Man aren't just random creatures. They often symbolize society's worst fears. Some are born from despair, others from obsession. The Monster Association, which we'll explore in later parts, isn't just an evil organization. It's a philosophical challenge to everything the heroes stand for. And Saitama? He's not just a bored guy. He's a man in existential crisis. Imagine having all the power in the universe, but feeling nothing. No adrenaline, no purpose, no recognition. That dead look in his eyes isn't laziness, it's emptiness. A hero who has lost the thrill of being a hero. That's the secret power of One Punch Man. It fools you into thinking it's all fun and fists, when in fact, it's one of the most thoughtful critiques of heroism ever told. And we've only scratched the surface.
When you watch One Punch Man for the first time, you might think it's a story about beating up monsters, but the more you dive into it, the clearer it becomes. This isn't just a fight between good and evil. It's a clash of philosophies, of identities, and of deeply broken systems. Let's talk about the Hero Association, the very organization built to protect humanity, or so it claims. Created after a random billionaire's grandson was saved from a crab monster by an unnamed man. Yes, that's supposed to be a joke. The Hero Association is a corporate ranking-based system that classifies heroes from C class to S class. But here's the irony. Instead of evaluating true strength, they rank based on popularity, test scores, and political usefulness. It's like hiring firefighters based on how many Instagram followers they have. Saitama scores perfectly in the physical test, literally maxing out the machine, but gets a miserable score in the written portion. Why? Because he doesn't care about bureaucracy. He just wants to fight monsters and save people. But in this system, image matters more than integrity. That's why heroes like Amai Mask rise through the ranks, while real heroes like Saitama remain invisible. Speaking of Amai Mask, did you know that he's possibly the darkest character in the entire series? Elegant, famous, and beloved, he's secretly a monster in disguise, both literally and emotionally. He believes that weak heroes don't deserve to exist, and once killed an entire band of rising heroes because he deemed them unworthy. Chilling, right? In a world where monsters come from human emotions, Amai Mask might be the perfect example of how fame and pressure corrupt.
And that's a recurring theme in One Punch Man. Monsters aren't born, they're made. Take a closer look at villains like Crab Lanty, who transformed into a crustacean freak after eating too much crab. It sounds silly until you realize he represents obsession and self-hatred. Or Carnage Kabuto, who turns into a killing machine because he's been locked up and experimented on. Or the famous Goketsu, a martial arts master who becomes a monster after losing everything. These aren't just monsters, they're metaphors for what happens when humanity breaks. And then there's Garou, perhaps the most complex character in the series. Originally introduced as a hero hunter, Garou is a former disciple of Bang who becomes obsessed with the idea that monsters are the real victims. As a child, he watched heroes beat down weird-looking characters without a second thought, and he realized, why do the strong always get to decide who's good and evil? Garou's entire journey is about challenging the moral structure of this universe. He doesn't want to destroy the world, he wants to level the playing field. He wants to become the symbol of fear that forces heroes to rethink their arrogance. And what makes him terrifying is that he kind of has a point. In fact, One Punch Man constantly challenges the viewer with the question, what really makes someone a hero? Is it raw strength, like Saitama? Is it loyalty, like Genos? Is it media charm, like Amai Mask? Or is it something more? Look at Moomin Rider. He's a C-class hero with 0 powers, just a guy on a bicycle wearing a helmet. And yet, when a monster attacks and everyone else runs, Moomin Rider stands his ground. Against all odds, against logic, against fear, he fights. Why? Because he believes. And when he gets destroyed over and over again, it's not a punchline. It's a tribute to the human spirit. In a way, Moomin Rider is more of a hero than anyone else on the screen.
That's another secret strength of this anime. It doesn't always reward power. It celebrates intention. You might not be able to break walls or destroy meteors, but if you choose to stand up when others fall, you're already stronger than most. But there's something even deeper going on here, hiding in the way people react to Saitama. He defeats threats in one blow. No build-up, no struggle. And instead of cheering, most people get suspicious. They assume he's cheating, that he's taking credit for someone else's work, that he's too plain to be real. This is genius social commentary. Because in real life, when someone does something incredible without fitting our expectations, we doubt them. When someone doesn't match the image of what success should look like, we assume it's fake. One Punch Man is holding a mirror to that, and it's not a pretty reflection. Even the way the world reacts to disasters is a subtle critique. Each city is named with a letter, City A, City B, all the way to Z. Why? Because in this world, cities are expendable, like replaceable blocks. When City Z gets attacked repeatedly, instead of defending it, people just leave. The government gives up. The monsters move in. Saitama lives there alone in the abandoned ruins, and no one even realizes he's the one keeping it from being completely destroyed. It's lonely being the strongest. And that's the emotional core of Saitama's character. He has everything: power, speed, endurance, but he has no equal, no rival, and no one to truly connect with. His power has made him isolated. Think about that. He's the ultimate fantasy, limitless strength, and yet he feels numb. That's the secret tragedy of One Punch Man. It's not about becoming the strongest. It's about what you lose when you do. And yet, Saitama still shows up. Day after day, he patrols, he punches, he saves lives. Not for recognition, not for glory, but because that's just what a hero does.
Beneath the crumbling cities, underneath the shiny towers of the Hero Association, lies something far more sinister. A network of tunnels, a hive of fear, a kingdom ruled not by heroes, but by nightmares. Welcome to the Monster Association, the shadowy heart of chaos in the One Punch Man universe. Unlike the heroes, who bicker over rank and salary, the monsters have one goal: overthrow humanity. But don't let that simplicity fool you. This organization is more layered than it appears. Their true strength lies not in brute force, but in the way they exploit human weakness. At the core of this monstrous army is Orochi, the so-called Monster King. Towering, grotesque, and terrifying in design, Orochi is the perfect villain, or so we think. What many fans don't realize is that Orochi is not the true mastermind. His terrifying image is a carefully constructed puppet show. The real power belongs to Gyoro, the mutated psychic who pulls the strings from behind the scenes. And here's the twist. Gyoro was once a human named Psychos, a former classmate of Blizzard, Fubuki. That's right, the war between heroes and monsters is not black and white. It's personal, built on betrayal, envy, and ambition. Psychos believed that humanity had reached its peak, and that evolution required the destruction of civilization as we know it. So she engineered the Monster Association to prove that monsters are the next step.
But what exactly makes someone a monster in this world? That's one of Punch Man's most disturbing truths. Monsters are often born from ideology. You don't need tentacles or scales. All you need is to believe that being human is no longer enough. Take Phoenix Man, for instance. He was just a man in a chicken costume who worked in children's television, but after being mocked, discarded, and left behind, he merged with the costume and became a living lie, literally fueled by the fantasy that he was destined for greatness. His transformation wasn't physical, it was emotional, and that's what makes it terrifying. Then there's Homeless Emperor, who received godlike powers from an unknown being simply for hating society. He claims that humanity is corrupt and selfish, and that total destruction is the only cure. His power? Energy spheres that disintegrate anything in their path. But what's more dangerous than his abilities is his conviction. He truly believes he's saving the world by ending it. But maybe the most terrifying figure of all
isn't even part of the monster association. Let's talk about God. Yes, you read that right. In the manga and webcomic, there exists a mysterious godlike entity that appears to be orchestrating everything from the shadows. It's never named outright, only referred to as God. This being appears to individuals in their most desperate moments, offering them incredible power at a terrible cost. When Homeless Emperor describes how he got his powers, he points to the sky. When Garou undergoes his final transformation, he seems to tap into something beyond mortal strength, and when Saitama fights the monstrous version of Garou, there are hints that this god is watching, interested. This being may be the true antagonist of One Punch Man, not a monster, not a man, but an idea, the belief that power can solve everything, that strength justifies anything, that being above others makes you divine.
And in that sense, God is the opposite of Saitama, because Saitama never asked for power. He never made a deal. He trained day after day because he wanted to be a hero, not a god, not a king, just someone who could help. His strength wasn't granted, it was earned, and it came at the cost of his emotions, his excitement, even his dreams. Which brings us to one of the most fascinating questions in the entire series. What is the true source of Saitama's power? The truth is, no one knows for sure. Not even one, the creator, has given a definitive answer. That's intentional. Saitama is a paradox. In a world built on growth arcs and training montages, he is an outlier, a man who broke the system. Some fans believe Saitama has subconsciously broken the limits of the universe. Others say he's a walking plot device, a satire of shonen cliches. But there's a more chilling theory, one whispered quietly in corners of the fandom, that Saitama has unknowingly touched the same god that fuels the monsters. That by pushing his body beyond all limits, by sacrificing everything, he became something inhuman, a being so powerful that even reality bends around him. After all, how else can you explain the laws of physics breaking every time he punches? This idea, this doubt, is what makes the story so rich. Because while Saitama may look like the ultimate hero, we're left wondering, what did it really cost him? Emotion? Relationships? Humanity? And that question bleeds into the world around him. Look at Tatsumaki, the S-class psychic. She's unbelievably powerful, feared even by monsters, but emotionally stunted, traumatized by her childhood. She hides her pain under anger, masks her fears with arrogance. She's not just strong, she's broken.
Same with Bang, the martial arts master. He trains heroes, but can't stop his own student Garou from becoming a villain. His strength has limits, and he knows it. That's why he admires Saitama, but also fears him. Even Genos, the loyal cyborg, is a study in contrast. He keeps upgrading his body, chasing power, chasing revenge. But no matter how fast, how strong, how advanced he becomes, he's still miles behind his bald master. And yet, Saitama's never impressed, never envious, just bored. Because that's the cruelest twist of all. Saitama is not proud of his strength. He's haunted by it. He lives in a tiny apartment, eats alone, shops for sales, and waits for something, anything, to make his heart beat faster. But nothing ever does. Not anymore. And still, every time disaster strikes, he shows up. No applause, no cameras, just one punch, and the cycle repeats.
When One Punch Man first aired in 2015, it didn't just drop like another seasonal anime. It exploded. Overnight, clips of Saitama's punch versus Genos, the meteor strike, and the infamous "okay" face were flooding the internet. Memes, GIFs, reaction videos, it was a digital wildfire. But how did an anime starring a bald man in a plain yellow jumpsuit become a global phenomenon?
Let's rewind a bit. Before the anime, before the high-quality manga, One Punch Man was just a humble webcomic. No publisher, no studio, just one and his raw story posted online. But this wasn't just a random passion project. It was a satire that struck a nerve. People were growing tired of overcomplicated plots, endless power-ups, and over-the-top heroes. Saitama, with his blank expression and godlike strength, was the perfect antidote. He was the joke that made a point, and people got it. So when Madhouse adapted it into anime with fluid, god-tier animation and razor-sharp comedic timing, it was like adding gasoline to an already burning flame. Episode after episode, viewers couldn't believe what they were watching. Fights that felt like Hollywood blockbusters, comedy that landed every time, and a hero who didn't care about being cool. He just wanted discounted groceries. But this success didn't happen in a vacuum. It sparked a ripple effect in the anime industry. Suddenly, studios were more willing to take risks on unconventional protagonists and meta-narratives. Series like Mob Psycho 100, also by One, The Disastrous Life of Psyche K, and even The Devil is a Part-Timer gained traction. The idea that anime could be self-aware, funny, and still deeply emotional became mainstream.
Saitama became more than a character. He became a symbol. People started using him in debates about strength and power scaling. Could he beat Goku, Superman, Thanos? Spoiler, yes, in One Punch. He even invaded other fandoms as a meme. That simple, unimpressed expression became the face of, I don't care how epic your villain is, I'm over it. But let's go deeper, because the appeal of One Punch Man goes beyond action and comedy. It's about existentialism. Saitama's journey isn't a rise to power. It's what comes after you've reached the top. He has everything and feels nothing. He's surrounded by people who would kill to be as strong as him, and yet he envies them. Not for their strength, but for their purpose, their struggle, their hope. This flips the traditional shonen anime formula on its head. In most shonen anime, the protagonist grows stronger to overcome some great evil. Think Naruto, Luffy, Goku. But Saitama? He's already won. He's bored out of his mind. And that forces the viewer to ask a terrifying question. What happens when your dream comes true and you still feel empty? That's the genius behind One Punch Man. Underneath the punches, the absurd villains, the parodies, it's a deeply human story about loneliness, about finding meaning, about the quiet pain of being unrecognized. Even characters around Saitama reflect this theme. Genos constantly upgrades himself, chasing revenge, but never feels closer to peace. Fubuki hides her insecurity behind her Blizzard group, terrified of being irrelevant next to her sister, Tatsumaki. King tries to hold his crumbling legacy together. Garou wants to be seen as more than a punching bag. King hides behind a lie to avoid reality. Everyone is searching for something, and most of them don't find it. Yet Saitama, despite all this emptiness, keeps going. That's what makes him so powerful, not just physically, but emotionally. He doesn't quit. He doesn't stop saving people. He shows up to help even when no one cheers for him. He's the hero we all wish we could be, in a world that constantly forgets him.
Now, here's a secret many fans miss. Saitama's strength is not just a gag, it's a test. One, the creator, once said that he made Saitama so strong as a way to explore a world where the usual stakes didn't apply. How do you tell a compelling story when the main character can't be challenged physically? The answer? You challenge him spiritually. That's why so much of the tension in One Punch Man doesn't come from, will Saitama win? We already know that. But from, how will he feel after? Will anyone recognize him? Will he ever be fulfilled? This shift in narrative style forced fans to redefine what makes a good story. You don't always need a final boss or an underdog arc. Sometimes the most powerful stories are about the things we can't punch away: loneliness, doubt, insecurity, irrelevance. And then there's the animation. Let's not forget that Madhouse's work in Season 1 raised the bar for action anime. Every frame was cinematic. The fight choreography, the angles, the speed, it all felt larger than life. Especially the Saitama versus Boros fight, which remains one of the most iconic anime battles ever animated. Speaking of Boros, did you notice that he's basically a mirror of Saitama? A galactic conqueror who spent decades searching for a worthy opponent only to finally find someone who could end him in a single hit. His armor breaks, his powers evolve, he goes full ultimate form, and Saitama barely tries. That fight wasn't just for fireworks, it was a tragedy. Two beings at the peak of their power, doomed to live unfulfilled lives. And Boros, in his final moments, realizes it. He says, "You weren't even using your full strength." Saitama responds with one of the coldest lines in anime history. "Yeah, you're pretty strong." Translation, "But not enough." In that moment, we're reminded once again, strength without connection is just another form of loneliness.
So here we are, 5 parts in, thousands of words later, and we're still only beginning to understand the strange, powerful world of One Punch Man. That's the magic of this story. It disguises itself as a simple action comedy, but beneath the punches, parodies, and bald jokes, it carries one of the deepest emotional cores in modern anime. And as we look toward the future, both in-universe and in the real world, the question becomes, where does the story go when the main character already won? The manga is far ahead of the anime now, and the arcs unfolding are anything but predictable. The battle against the Monster Association pushes everyone to their limit, not physically, but emotionally. We see fractures form among heroes, moral lines blur. The Heroes Association's corruption becomes undeniable, and most importantly, the world begins to see that true power doesn't come from status, but from sacrifice. Characters once treated as jokes are starting to evolve. Take Fubuki, for example. In earlier chapters, she was mostly seen as a stylish psychic leader with a superiority complex, but as the story grows, we learn about her rivalry with her sister Tatsumaki and the vulnerability she hides under her icy front. Her relationship with Saitama, strange, cautious, and quietly respectful, hints at a powerful emotional subplot. He doesn't treat her like a goddess or a threat, just a person, and that's something she's never had. And then there's King, the weakest, strongest man alive. A walking fraud who has managed to survive by pure luck. But what makes him interesting isn't the lie, it's that he wants to be better. He trains in secret. He encourages Saitama. He shows us that even without strength, you can still be brave in your own way. And, of course, there's Garou.
His evolution is nothing short of Shakespearean. What began as a one-note villain obsessed with chaos becomes one of the most philosophical and tragic arcs in the entire manga. Garou becomes a monster not because he's evil, but because he's desperate to change a system that rewards violence with fame and punishes those who don't fit the mold. In trying to become the ultimate villain, he becomes a mirror of the world's hypocrisy. But the most surprising twist? Saitama's growth. Not in strength, he's already the strongest, but in humanity. For so long, he's walked through battles like they were errands, but when Garou gains godlike powers and creates a time-altering catastrophe, something unprecedented happens. Saitama is forced to care. He chases Garou across space and time, not because of duty, but because of empathy. He sees someone else as lonely, broken, and lost as he once was. In that moment, Saitama becomes something more than a hero. He becomes human again. And that's the ultimate twist of One Punch Man. It's not about getting stronger. It's about remembering who you are, even when the world tries to flatten you into a label. S-class, C-class, monster, god, hero. What matters is your choices, your heart. That's why people all over the world connect with this story. Not because we're all powerful, but because we've all felt powerless. We've all wanted to be seen, to matter, to stand for something. Saitama's struggle is not about defeating enemies. It's about rediscovering meaning in a life that no longer surprises him.
So what comes next? Season 3 of the anime has been confirmed, and fans are eagerly waiting to see the Monster Association arc brought to life. The battles are bigger, the stakes are higher, the animation, hopefully, will rise to match the emotional intensity. We'll see more of the god entity, more of Garou's descent, more of Saitama not just punching, but feeling. And beyond that, theories abound. Some believe Saitama will eventually confront the being known as God, a final test of purpose versus power. Others think Genos will sacrifice himself. Some even suggest that King, somehow, will become the unlikely savior of the world. But no matter what happens, One Punch Man has already changed anime forever. It challenged the rules of storytelling. It made fun of the genre while honoring it. It gave us a hero who doesn't scream, who doesn't gloat, who doesn't need flashbacks or speeches. Just a man in slippers saving the world before lunch. That's the legacy of Saitama. He reminded us that you don't need to look like a hero to be one. You don't need a cape or fame or perfect hair. Sometimes all it takes is showing up, consistently, quietly, and without asking for applause. So the next time you feel invisible, underappreciated, or stuck in a world that values image over substance, remember this. Somewhere out there is a bald man in a hoodie, walking through a monster-infested city, bored out of his mind, yet still saving the day. Not for glory, not for money, just because it's the right thing to do. And that might just be the strongest thing of all. The end.